There is a certain kind of person who has a strange ability they never asked for. They meet someone at a party, a charming, well-dressed, well-spoken person, and within the first 3 minutes, something inside them quietly says, "This person is not who they're pretending to be." They don't know how they know. There is no evidence. The person hasn't done anything wrong, but the signal is unmistakable. And 6 months later, when the truth comes out and everyone is shocked, this person feels no surprise, just a quiet, tired confirmation. I knew. Many people think this is intuition, a lucky guess. But the truth is something more specific. Their brain has been trained, often since childhood, to read the gap between what people say and who they actually are. They are not psychic. They are not paranoid. They simply learned very early that the surface of a human being is not the same as the human being underneath. And once you learn that, you cannot unlearn it. Today, we are going to decode the psychology of people who can see through anyone, where this ability comes from, why it feels like a curse more often than a gift, and how to live with a kind of sight that most of the world cannot share. To understand this ability, we have to start with a concept psychology calls theory of mind. This is the brain's ability to model what is happening inside another person's head, what they are thinking, what they want, what they are hiding. Every human develops some version of this by around the age of 4, but not every human develops it to the same level. For most people, theory of mind stays at a comfortable middle setting. They can tell if someone is happy or sad. They can pick up on obvious lies, but they take what people say mostly at face value. For the people we are talking about today, theory of mind got turned up to a setting most humans never reach. They do not just sense the obvious emotion. They sense the second emotion underneath it, the one the person is trying to hide, and then they sense the third one underneath that, the one the person doesn't even know they are feeling. Researchers like Paul Ekman have spent decades cataloging the micro-expressions that flicker across a human face in fractions of a second. The forced smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the half-second of contempt before a polite response, the tiny tightening of the jaw when someone says, "I'm fine." Most people miss these signals because their brain filters them out as noise. The people we are talking about have a brain that does not filter. Every signal lands, every signal gets read. Why does this happen? It almost always traces back to a childhood where the surface of life did not match the reality underneath. Maybe one parent was struggling but pretending everything was fine. Maybe there was a family secret, an addiction, an affair, a mental illness that the family pretended wasn't there. Maybe the child was constantly told, "Everything is okay," while watching their mother's hands shake. Or maybe the parent was simply unpredictable, warm at breakfast and ice cold by dinner, laughing one moment, exploding the next. In either case, the child's brain learned a critical lesson very early. Words lie, faces lie, but the body always tells the truth. So they stopped trusting words. They started watching the microsignals, the slight tightening around the eyes, the half-second pause before, "I'm fine," the forced cheerfulness that didn't quite reach the voice. They became, in a sense, very small detectives because their safety depended on it. They learned to scan a parent's face the moment they walked into a room. They learned to interpret the sound of a key in the door, the weight of footsteps in the hallway, the tone of the first hello. They became experts in predicting human behavior. And here's the important part. The brain does not retire skills that once kept you alive. So when that child grows up and walks into a normal adult room, the system is still running. They are still scanning. They are still reading. They just call it intuition now. So how does this ability actually show up in adult life? Let's go through the signs. Sign 1. They feel a wrong note before they can name it. You are at a dinner. Someone is telling a story. Everyone is laughing. And one specific person in the room, let's say it's you, notices something the rest don't. The storyteller mentions their partner, and there is a half-second of something behind the eyes. A flicker. A small twitch in the voice. Everyone else hears a happy story about a happy couple. You hear a person quietly drowning in a relationship they are not ready to admit is over. You don't say anything. You're not even sure what you noticed. But weeks later, when that couple breaks up, you remember the moment. You knew. Psychology calls this affective intuition. The body's ability to register emotional information before the conscious mind can put it into words. The people we are talking about can't ignore it. The signal is loud, and they have spent their whole lives learning that the signal is usually right. Sign 2. They get physically uncomfortable around inauthentic people. For most people, a charming liar is a charming liar. They might enjoy the charm. They might fall for it. They might be vaguely uneasy but unable to say why. For someone who sees through people, a charming liar feels like nails on a chalkboard. There is a specific full-body discomfort. The shoulders tense. The chest gets tight. Something in the stomach turns over. They cannot relax in the conversation because part of their nervous system is screaming, This is not real. Often, they don't even know who they are reacting to. They just know they need to leave the room. And the next day, they will replay the interaction and slowly figure out what they were picking up on. The forced laugh that didn't reach the eyes. The compliment that sounded like a setup. The story that had been rehearsed too many times. Sign 3. They predict things about people that come true. 6 months ago, you met your friend's new partner. Perfect on paper, kind, successful, affectionate. Your friend was glowing. And you smiled and said the right things. But you went home and quietly told someone you trusted, something is off with him. I can't explain it. I just don't trust him. And now, 6 months later, your friend is in tears because he has been lying about something significant. And the friend comes to you and says, why didn't you tell me? And you say, very gently, I tried. You weren't ready to hear it. These people have a track record. Most of them have learned to keep quiet about their predictions because the predictions sound paranoid in the moment and only become wisdom in retrospect. But somewhere inside, they keep an internal scoreboard, and it is almost always right. Sign 4. They are exhausted by social events that others find easy. A normal dinner party for most people is fun. You eat, you talk, you laugh, you go home. For someone who reads people at this level, a normal dinner party is the equivalent of running 10 background processes at once. They are tracking who is actually enjoying themselves and who is performing. They are noticing which couple is silently fighting. They are seeing who keeps deflecting questions about their job because something has gone wrong there. They participate fully in the surface conversation while a second layer of awareness is silently filing all of it away. They go home and collapse, and they often cannot explain why 2 hours of small talk wiped them out. The explanation is simple. They weren't doing small talk. They were doing emotional surveillance work that no one paid them for. Psychology calls this cognitive load. Imagine running your laptop with 30 tabs open. The fan is spinning. The battery is draining. Everything is slower. That is what every social interaction feels like to a brain that cannot stop reading. Sign 5. They are the friend people come to for the unfiltered truth. There is a specific role they tend to occupy in their friend group. They are the one people pull aside and say, I need to ask you something. And I need you to actually tell me the truth. Because everyone, on some level, knows that this person will not lie to spare feelings. They will not pretend the relationship is great if it isn't. They will not nod along just to keep things smooth. And the friend group both loves this and quietly resents it. They love it when they need an honest answer. They resent it when they wanted reassurance and got insight instead. The truth teller often feels strangely lonely inside their friend group because they are used as a mirror more than they are loved as a person. People come to them when they need clarity, not when they need joy. But now we have to talk about what this ability actually costs, because the gift is real, but so is the bill. The first cost is the loss of relational innocence. There is a kind of happiness that requires not seeing too much, the ability to take a compliment at face value, to believe a friend when they say they're fine, to trust a partner's reassurance without scanning their face for the truth. People who see through other people lose access to that simpler kind of happiness very early. They cannot unsee. So even in moments that should be joyful, a wedding, a celebration, a heartfelt apology, there is often a second layer running in the background, noticing the cracks. They are not cynical. They simply cannot turn the scanning off. The second cost is being routinely disbelieved, because their evidence is rarely concrete. They cannot point to a smoking gun. So, when they try to warn the people they love, I don't trust this person around you, something is wrong in your marriage, they are often dismissed. Told they are paranoid, told they are too suspicious. And then, months or years later when the truth comes out and they were right, the people who dismissed them rarely come back and apologize. The result is that many of them eventually stop warning people at all. They keep what they see to themselves, which leads to the deepest cost. The third cost is the loneliness of seeing alone. They walk through the world watching a movie no one else is watching. They notice the marriage at the next table that has gone cold. They notice the colleague on the edge of something nobody is asking about. They notice the family at the airport where one child is being treated very differently than the others, and they can do nothing with any of it. They cannot intervene. They cannot speak. They can only see. Some psychologists call this observer burden, the exhaustion of being a witness no one has appointed. So if you recognize yourself in this, what do you actually do? You do not get to turn the ability off. It has been with you too long, but you can change your relationship to it. 3 principles can help. Principle 1. Separate seeing from saying. The biggest mistake people with this ability make is assuming that because they see something, they must speak it. They feel a kind of moral pressure to name what no one else is naming. But here is something to understand. Seeing is involuntary. Speaking is a choice. You can hold a perception privately. You can know something about a person and not weaponize it. You can let people present the version of themselves they want to present, even when you can see the version underneath. This is not dishonesty. This is mercy. Not every truth you see is yours to say. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone wear the mask they need to wear to get through the day. You can still see them. They just do not need to know that you do. Principle 2. Calibrate the alarm. Here is a humbling thing to admit. Sometimes the signal is wrong. Sometimes what you are reading as inauthenticity in another person is actually a projection of your own discomfort. Sometimes the weird vibe you got was a person being shy, not deceptive. The mature version of this ability includes the willingness to be wrong, to say to yourself, I'm picking up something. I'm not sure what. Let me wait and watch before I conclude anything. The alarm is useful, but an alarm that goes off at every footstep is useless. Trust the signal, but verify with time. The best truth seers in the world are not the ones who shout the loudest. They are the ones who watch the longest before they decide. Principle 3. Choose where to spend the gift. This ability takes energy. A lot of it. And most people with this gift waste it on situations and people who do not deserve that level of attention. They burn out reading the emotional state of every stranger at a coffee shop. They exhaust themselves analyzing coworkers who don't actually matter to them. So learn to direct the beam. Save the deep reading for the people who are close to you. The partner, the friends, the people whose well-being you actually have some say in. Let the strangers be strangers. You do not have to know everyone fully. You only have to know fully the people you love. And here is where the gift transforms. When this ability is held with discretion, calibrated with humility, and directed with care, it stops being a curse. It becomes one of the most powerful gifts a human being can offer another human being. Because the same ability that lets you see through deception also lets you see through pain. The same eyes that catch the liar also catch the friend who is silently suffering. The same instinct that reads inauthenticity also reads goodness. Accurately, deeply, and without flattery. People who see through other people when they finally turn the gift inward often discover something they did not expect. They see the depth in people they had dismissed. They see the kindness in people who seemed ordinary. They see the quiet beauty in people who do not perform for attention. The same scanning that exhausted them in their 20s becomes, in their 30s and 40s, the thing that lets them love more accurately than almost anyone else they know. In other words, the same gift that began as a survival skill in childhood ends as a love skill in adulthood. The detective becomes a witness. The scanner becomes a friend. If any of this described you, here is what I want you to know. You are not paranoid. You are not too suspicious. You are not reading too much into things. You are someone whose nervous system learned very early to look past the surface of human beings. That ability was probably forged in a place where the surface couldn't be trusted. It served you then, and it can serve you now, if you let it grow up. The cynical version of this gift sees through everyone and trusts no one. The mature version sees through everyone and chooses, with care, who deserves to be let close. You get to decide which version you become. Share this video with the one person in your life who has always told you the truth, even when you didn't want to hear it. They probably need to know they are not the only one who carries this. And if you want to keep exploring the strange psychology of people who experience the world more deeply than most, subscribe so we can keep walking this road together. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.